And the now president-elect's transition plans. Let's go to Corey Lewandowski, senior advisor to President-elect Trump. All right, Corey, congratulations. How's the former president, soon-to-be next president, feeling today?
He obviously feels great, Elizabeth. Look, this outpouring of support from the American people. Not only did he win the Electoral College, but he's going to win the popular vote, something hasn't been done in almost 20 years. So he feels very good about the vision that he laid out for America. And now it's time to go execute that vision.
It's been a tough race between him and Kamala Harris, a lot of tough language between both of them. How did that phone call this afternoon go with Vice President Harris?
The president's put a statement out on it, and, it's a little disappointing that the vice president didn't call last night. She went to bed instead. The results were clearly known. The president won an overwhelming victory. But here's where we are, Elizabeth. It's time to unite the country, to be the president for everybody, to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to have a family that's safe and secure when we finish the border wall and have more economic prosperity in their own lives. So by Donald Trump getting in and cutting taxes and no taxes on Social Security, no taxes on tips, and no tax on overtime, it will give everybody that opportunity to have the leg up that they really need right now.
So what are we going to see President-elect Trump do now to unite the country? He talked about that as well in his speech early this morning. I think it was at 2:30 this morning. What specifically is he going to do to unite the country? Because we are seeing right now a country that is as divided as it's been in decades.
Well, that's right. But listen, when you've got good policies that benefits everybody, regardless of race, religion, ethnicity, gender, or creed, that's what unites the country. And that's what I think a president should do. And listen, I don't ever say that I wanted Joe Biden to be the president because I wanted Donald Trump to win at the time. But I want Joe Biden to be successful when he was the president because I want my country to be successful. And now we're going to have a successful country. We're going to make sure our enemies around the world fear us, our allies respect us. But Elizabeth, what we're going to do is we're going to bring everybody together. Right? This is going to be a president for everybody. And that's an opportunity that I think a lot of people have said wasn't going to happen under the Trump administration. The reality is we're going to provide those economic opportunities and safety and security for everybody.
He also spoke this afternoon with President Biden, who called and congratulated him and invited him for the traditional meeting at the White House. Will President-elect Trump accept that?
We've done that in the past. As you know, President Trump went there when President Obama was in office, and the First Lady went then. Met with Michelle Obama, and two of the senior staffers, both Jared Kushner and Hope Hicks, went to the White House for those meetings as the transition team began. It is a transition that the president has participated in the past. It's very possible he's going to do it again. But, Elizabeth, we have an advantage now. Having served 4 years in the administration in the past, we don't have to worry about getting ready on day one. We will be ready on day one. There was a lot of criticism when Donald Trump came in 2017 that the team wasn't ready. I can tell you those same mistakes won't be made. We're going to be ready to hit the ground on January 20th.
The president, former President-elect Trump, we should just pick President-elect Trump had elected not to get the daily intelligence briefings while he was running this campaign. When will those begin now that he is president-elect?
Well, listen, he still has to name some of his senior members of the team, whether it's his chief of staff, his national security advisor. Historically speaking, those intelligence briefings, also known as the PDB, are given not only to the president, but to two senior advisors, people who have security clearances in place. Those people have to be named during the transition team. 4 years ago, we had a sitting governor and a former three-star general who was participating in those meetings. The president has to name who his team is going to be so they can be right in on those individuals.
And how soon might that happen, Corey?
Yeah, look, we're not in a big rush. The president's going to make his decision in due time. But that being said, he has some incredible candidates. We've got some incredible people who want to join the administration, those people who have been part of the administration in the past, and some new faces you'll see around.
His win, Corey, is one of the most astonishing political comeback stories of modern history. Many thought he was radioactive after January 6th, and he managed to overcome not only that, but prevail. He went on and survived 2 assassination attempts, a criminal conviction, several indictments. He said this morning, this was the greatest political movement of all time. Do you agree with that, or is that a little bit of hyperbole?
Elizabeth, I can't think of another time in modern political history where someone has been able to achieve what he's been able to achieve. And the movement, the people that he's brought together to be part of the MAGA movement, it's not just the wealthy country club Republicans, to quite the contrary. It's the blue-collar workers, the ones who feel that they've been left behind. And you look at when Donald Trump is either working at McDonald's or in that garbage truck, that unites people because they want to have somebody who's fighting for them. So he has put a coalition together of Latino Americans, Asian Americans, African Americans that have outperformed any Republican in modern history. So it's a very special movement, what he's put together. I don't think we'll ever see anything like it again in our lifetime.
All right, Corey Lewandowski, I'm sure the celebrating continues at Mar-a-Lago. Thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.